You may be thinking that the movies make it look easy. Oh, well, all you gotta do is put a bullet of silver in its skull. That's not too hard, right? Wrong. A cryptid is at least 6 times smarter than any human. If I could kill humans instead, I would complete twice as many jobs. There are more risks involved than people take into account. You fail and dozens of others die. You succeed and you get your $60 per cryptid. I started this thread to document my experiences in the field. I don't know how long it'll carry it on. It depends how long people listen. It's just gonna kinda be a public journal. Anyways, I'm rambling. I'm Kyle and I kill things that go bump in the night. Night 1. At 6 p.m., I get into my Midnight Black 2010 Ford F-350. The cast iron spiked bumper guard glistening in the evening sun. She's my pride and joy. Name's Stacy. She keeps me company on my trips. That and 101.5. I begin my patrol, waiting for the call from my boss, Jerry, a 6'9" redhead who's more jacked than Mike Tyson on steroids, about my night's assignment. He finally calls me around 8:30. Jerry's deep, gravelly voice relays the information that I'm on the hunt for a staggeron. It's basically a big buck that is 6 feet tall. If that deer had the organic equivalent of cast iron for fur and horns sharper than that of butcher knives. Also said, it is not afraid of humans, and will not hesitate to gore them to death. And add carnivorous on top of that and you have a staggeron. I personally like to call them stags. All in all, a fairly simple hunt to open this log. I went to the area of the sighting and I parked Stacy. I opened the back door of my truck, grabbed my AR-10 chambered in .308. All in all, effectual due to the fact that they were lead bullets, and my .500 Magnum revolver. I put one very expensive bullet that vibrated between my fingers in the cylinder. A silver bullet. I put the revolver in my holster, and started the search for the gory sight. According to Jerry, a young couple was walking on the side of the road when a huge white mass came charging out and collided with the male. He was killed on impact. The female ran and called the police, bawling about the loss of her boyfriend. They referred her to Jerry, who then contacted me. She then witnessed the stag spear her boyfriend's corpse and walk into the woods with it impaled on its horns. I found bloodstains in the road and I followed them into the woods. After about half an hour of trailing it, it was starting to get dark. I switched on the light at the end of my gun. By the light from my tack light, I found the sickening sight. There would be no open casket funeral for this man. There wasn't much left of him. The stag had ripped his stomach open, leaving his entrails trailing everywhere. His chest was nothing but lungs and ribs. Stags think of hearts as a delectable morsel, and the stag was now working on eating the man's face. I needed a clean shot to the head with my revolver to kill it. The only thing I was going to do with the rifle would be piss it off. And plus, even if I had managed to penetrate his skin, cryptids have advanced regeneration. In a matter of minutes, it would be fully healed. However, bronze burns cryptids. It had not yet noticed me. I switched off my tack light and I waited for my eyes to adjust. I pulled the roll of bronze wire I always kept on me out of my pocket and unrolled some. With the silence of a trained assassin. Which I am, but that's a story for another time. Was when I thought of something. I'm a big guy, 6'5" and about 200 pounds of pure muscle. But I couldn't possibly keep this thing under control until it was tired enough to shoot it, unless it was in severe pain beforehand. The stag's genitals were openly exposed. I took my chance and I brought my steel-toed area boots into its nuts as hard as I could. The stag brayed in pain as its baby-making sack was hit with enough pressure to smash a cinder block. I jumped on its back and I wrapped the wire around the stag's neck and I pulled. I heard the sizzle of its skin burning and it started to buck. The only thing I could think was, shit, how did it recover so fast? I hung on for dear life, as I knew if I was bucked off those horns, they were gonna stab me right through the lungs. And then I got another idea that was probably dumber than the first. I grabbed its horns and I jumped. It was getting more pissed off by the minute, and even more so that it had resistance on its horns. I got traction and I held my footing. I twisted its head and the stag dropped, flopping like a fish out of water. You see, when the stag is twisted, it loses all power to its muscles. I placed my foot on its neck, pulled out the revolver, took aim at its head, and I pulled the trigger. The shot rang out and the stag stopped thrashing. I called Jerry, told him that the job was done. He sent a cleanup crew to take care of the bodies, both human and stag. I waited on Stacy's tailgate until they got there. Once they did, I exchanged words with Jerry, who accompanied them. The money was wired to my account and I put my equipment back in my truck and drove off, only slightly more sore than when I started. I got home, locked my truck and went inside, and here I am. Typing a journal of my tale of the night on Reddit. That's all the time I have for now. I'll be back soon. This is Kyle Reidinger signing off. Hey again. And tonight I had an extremely difficult and, well, God, it was painful. Currently my ass feels like I dropped the soap in prison. My arm is wrapped in hospital gauze due to the bite that I received. And I'm more purple than Thanos. I'm Kyle Reidinger and I get the shit beat out of me by hairless dogs apparently. Night 2. I got into my truck, completely dreading tonight's hunt. I had dealt with Native American creatures before and shit, they hurt. I, however, had never dealt with this specific creature. Jerry called me around 5. Yo, I said as I picked up the phone. Kyle, your assignment is akela. It's been terrorizing the cars driving on 522. What the hell is akela? Hang on, let me pull up the file. A few clicks later. A beast of Native American origin, known to fry the brain of any human that looks in its eyes, confusing it long enough to strike. It has an appearance like that of a hairless coyote, save for the fur on its feet which helps it move silently. It sounds like something straight from hell. He hung up the phone a second after that, and now I was on my way through the state of West Virginia to a little town in the middle of nowhere known as Berkeley Springs. Think the smallest hick town you know and shrink it by a factor of 4. That's Berkeley Springs. I arrived in town and I went to a small gas station, asking about anybody seeing a hairless coyote. Apparently a car had rolled through about an hour before. The tire popped, scratches down the side and a smashed window. I asked to see the car as it had been left there. The 2019 Dodge Challenger looked like it had been hit by a steamroller with claws. The windshield was smashed. There were 2-inch deep claw marks running down the side, shredding the metal and chipping the black paint. The tire looked like it had been run through a sickle bar mower, and the car's roof had been ripped off, turning it into a convertible, redneck style. Whatever this keylud was, it was a bad mother trucker, and I wasn't sure I wanted to fight it. I asked the owner of the store where the car owner had had his encounter, if you can call it that. He told me that it was about a mile outside of town. I opened up the back of my truck and I started loading my guns. I put a magazine of bronze rounds into my AR, and one single bullet into my revolver. This round was different from what I normally used. If the beast is Native American, you have to use a special round. The bullets are silver hollow points with holy ash in the tip, and blessed by a Native American shaman. I got in the truck and I started driving down 522. After about 5 minutes, I heard a growl that rattled the frame of my truck, and I saw golden eyes in the woods alongside the road. Next thing I knew, my truck was rattling with each revolution of my tire. I stopped the truck and I got out. I looked at my passenger side tire and saw a hairless coyote clamped on my steel reinforced tire. It snarled and released it when it saw me. This thing was 5 foot tall, with wrinkled pink skin and midnight black fur around its feet. It bared huge, sharp teeth at me as I started to back up, and it followed. I aimed my assault rifle at its eyes and fired. It yelled in pain as my bullet hit it in the eye, leaving a sizzling hole. You see, cryptids couldn't regenerate complete new body parts, such as eyes, so it would be blind in that eye forever. It started to run at me and I kicked it in the head. It went sprawling with another yelp. However, it was back up in half a second and running at me again. I'm not proud of it, but I panicked in the moment. I started to run away when this thing jumped on me and bit me in the ass. I flipped over and I trapped it beneath me, but it scratched the hell out of my back trying to get out. I got up and I ran to put distance between us. It was back up in a second and running at me. It caught up and it latched onto my arm. I screamed in pain, which only made it bite harder. I took my Bowie knife, the size of a small crusader sword, out and I stabbed it in its side. It yelped again and let go, but it regenerated around my knife so I wouldn't be able to get it back out. Before I knew what was happening, the keelet jumped on me. I held it back as best I could because it was trying to snap my throat. I knew if it got to my throat, I was gone. I started frantically punching it in the face, neck, and body. Eventually, I kicked it off and I ran to Stacy. I started her up and drove her full speed into the keelet, impaling it on the cast iron spikes welded to my bumper guard. It thrashed and screamed and sprayed blood across the front of my truck and the ground. I pulled out my revolver, doing my best to minimize use of my left arm, and aimed at the keelet's head and fired. It died immediately. I got back in my truck, slumped into the driver's seat and called Jerry, telling him that the keelet was dead. While I was waiting for the cleanup crew, I did my best to staunch the bleeding in my arm to no result. The keelet had severed an artery. I ripped off my shirt sleeve and wrapped it tightly around the bite. That would have to do until I got to the hospital. Jerry got there with the crew, took the body and wired $750 to my account. Damn well deserved too after the shit that thing put me through. And I drove to the hospital. I told the doctor in the hospital that I got attacked by a rabid dog, which isn't entirely untrue. I went home and here I am again writing this post. I'm gonna take some time off to let my wounds heal. I'll be back after that. Don't play with keelets, kids. This is Kyle Reininger, signing off. Night 3. Jerry called me with my assignment for the night, a naiad and Javans. Now I know how to deal with Javans, but I had never had to do so. Basically, they're like big fireflies. They grow red and create a melodic song by moving their wings. This song could put a human to sleep, or if they're already asleep, it can keep them from waking. From what I can tell, they're fairly peaceful. The way to get rid of them is to make their presence seem unwanted. I just didn't quite know how to do this. A naiad is a water nymph that lures people into the water with their beauty, and then they drown them. I had dealt with them first. The house was about half an hour outside of Berkeley Springs. That place like attracts cryptids. On the way there, I realized that I haven't really told you guys much about me, so let me introduce myself. My name is Kyle Redinger. I'm a 6'5", 200-pound lump of pure muscle. I have jet black hair, a standard army crew cut, and an unkempt lumberjack beard. My typical attire includes bootcut jeans, a plain black tight t-shirt, my steel-toed area boots, and a camo baseball cap. I grew up in rural West Virginia, between Berkeley Springs and Martinsburg. My dad was a raging alcoholic who took his anger out on me. My mother was submissive and didn't stand up to my father. My little sister Becca is the nicest person you'll ever meet. I killed my dad when I was 17. I came home from work one night to hear her screaming. My mom was at work as well. I ran up the stairs and burst into her room to see my dad on top of her. I kept a gun since I worked at a gun shop and I used it in defense. I grabbed him, threw him to the floor, and didn't hesitate to shoot him in the dick. As he lay on the floor screaming, I got Becca out. I grabbed him again and slammed him against the window over and over until it shattered. I shoved him out and I watched him tumble off the porch roof onto the ground. I ran down the stairs and outside to see him trying to get up, and I shot him. Again and again until my gun was out of ammo. He was dead by the third shot. I buried him in the backyard. My mother came home and I told her what had happened. No one ever suspected his disappearance related to his death. They all thought that he ran off with another woman. After that, I graduated high school and I used my psychology degree in an unusual way. I started a business as a contract killer. Something snapped at me the day I killed my father. Some piece of my sanity was just gone. Not only was I now willing to kill, but, well, I looked forward to it. I enjoyed it. But don't mistake me as a serial killer, oh no. I do it for cash. You may be wondering why I'm willing to confess to these crimes that I would be executed for. Well, for one, I'm no longer afraid of death. I no longer really feel fear. I feel pain and defeat, yes, but not fear. And number two, the entire world thinks that I'm dead, shot and a hit gone wrong. Well, I was shot, but I recovered just fine. The body they found that had my photo-less ID was in fact planted on a Mr. George Mason, my accomplice, who, when I was shot, I shot in the back of the head and pitched his body over the side of the building before fleeing the scene. That's when Jerry found me. I was hiding out at my late grandmother's house when I heard a knock at the door. I was just getting hot with a girl I brought home from the local bar, so obviously, this knock on the door at 1 a.m. pissed me off a bit. I didn't bother putting my pants back on before I walked to the door, leaving a very noticeable bulge in my boxers. I opened the door to see that 6'9" redhead with a lumberjack beard and biceps bigger than a bottle of Jack in my hand. "Who the hell are you?" I asked. "Name's Jerry. I understand you're a hitman on the run." At this statement, I knew he was going to try and get money from me or threaten to tell. So I smashed the bottle of Jack Daniels on his head, swung up onto his back, and I put him in a chokehold. He promptly plucked me off his back with one hand and hurled me through the drywall. "I hope that's not the tactic you use when I hire you." I didn't like that he didn't say "if" in the statement. It was like he was implying that I was gonna go work for him or else. "What do you mean, hire me?" "I mean that from now on, you're gonna be hunting monsters." He flicked a business card at my face and walked towards the door. The card said, "Cryptx Monster Extermination Services, Jerry Wykes," and then his phone number. "Hold the phone, Jim or Jerry, or jerk off, or whatever the hell your name is. What if I don't want to hunt monsters since they don't exist?" "Oh, you want proof of their existence? Here." He disappeared for a moment and came back with a freaking 6-foot-tall wolf. It leapt on me and started to drag me out the door by my shirt. After my screaming, Jerry then said, "Ragmire, that's enough." "What the hell is that thing?" "That would be a fern wolf. And as to your question, if you don't want to, then you die. Simple as that." "How much?" "The $60 minimum. It goes up depending on the cryptid." "Fine, I'll attend the training." "Great, see you there." After this, me and my date finished what we were doing 3 times over, and I sent her home the next morning. And now here I am. After a week of training, I'm now a cryptid hunter of 2 months. I arrived at the property with the Naiad problem. The property was big, probably about 100 acres based on what Stacy's GPS said. I turned off the song that I was listening to, Indestructible by Disturbed, and I got out of the truck. The owner of the property walked up to me. "Pond's over there," he said in a gruff voice. He was middle-aged, balding, and had a beer belly. He was fairly short with a no-nonsense face. I grabbed a silver spear out of my truck after thanking the man and watching him walk back inside. I walked over to the pond and I looked in. I couldn't see anything at first, but then I noticed the face. It was the same as a human's, but it was green. I held up the spear and I spoke in a commanding voice. "Come out of the pond now, or I swear I'll stab you in the head." She looked up at me and didn't move, as if calling my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. A second later, she was wailing in an ear-splitting tone and writhing under the water. A few more seconds and she was floating, dead. She literally just looked like a human with a fishtail. I called Jerry and I left the property. Next, I had the call about the job ends. I arrived at the spot on 522 near to where I killed the keelet at around 10 p.m. I immediately saw the red glow and I heard their melodic song. To make them feel unwanted, I grabbed my revolver and shot it in their general direction. They flew off and I got back into Stacy. I started to head home when I saw something that definitely wasn't human run in front of my truck. I pulled out my revolver with one of my nat rounds and I got out of the truck. I began to search. After a while of walking down the road, I found a little old lady hunched over in the middle of the highway. I knew exactly what this was when I saw the wood skin on her back. Skinwalker. Shit. She turned around and as soon as I met her eyes, I passed out. I woke up a few seconds later with her on top of me now. A wolf-like creature, only it was so distorted that it looked more like a demon. I moved extremely quickly and put all my weight behind my foot, which connected with its abdomen and sent it flying. I ran up to it and I kicked it in the face. Only it caught my shoe and it dragged me off my feet. It turned back to human and this thing kicked me in the face. She then punched me in the dick. "What the hell?" I said. "Make wise your words, son," she said in a voice far too deep for a little old lady. "Screw off." She kicked me in the mouth and I started to stand up. She grabbed the knife on my belt and cut me across the abdomen, knocked me down and held the knife against my throat. I was dead, I knew it. She knew it. But for some reason I survived. She got up, putting my knife back in my belt, punched me in the throat to keep me down, and ran off into the woods yelling, "Next time, I won't be so merciful." After I recovered my composure, I got up. I tried to track her, but it was useless. There were no tracks in the mud, no bloodstains, nothing. I checked the cut on my chest. It was deep, but I wouldn't need stitches. I called Jerry and told him what had happened, and that there was a Skinwalker at large. He responded with a, "Kyle, you freaking idiot." and I went home to lick my wounds. So, my call was a little different tonight. First of all, Jerry said that I now had a partner. His name is Xavier. He can explain his backstory. He'll be there in 10 minutes. Hang on, Jerry. You know I work alone. I don't do partners. You do now. Fine. What's my assignment? You have two again tonight. First, there is a herd of Wendigo hunting tourists around the Winchester, Virginia area. Second, well, this is an unusual one. Jerry chuckled. A sex robot went rampant. It killed its owner by strangling it between its legs during a 69 maneuver. It was last spotted around the Sharpsburg area in Maryland. Jerry, you do realize I work in cryptid interventions, not killing sex workers, right? Hey, whatever it takes to make money, right? Yeah, I guess. Wait for Javier to set out. Copy that. Javier arrived about 5 minutes later. A 2019 Dodge Ram 3500 Turbo Diesel painted cherry red rolled into my driveway. A rich boy. This guy clearly had no idea what he needed to hunt cryptids. The truck was fully stock. No reinforced windows, no cast iron bumper, no iron-laced tires, nothing. That truck was like a soda can to any cryptid. A man in his early 20s stepped out of the truck. He was about 6 foot even, probably 170 pounds with a mullet, a thick mustache, and a Glock 17 on his hip. He was wearing a pair of black jeans and a white t-shirt, and a pair of Carolina boots. He had a pair of Oakley sunglasses covering his eyes. "You must be Kyle," he said while approaching me. "Yeah, and you must be Xavier," I replied. "The one and only." "This your truck?" I asked, pointing to it. "Yeah, you like her?" "Oh yeah, I love her. But we're gonna take my truck if you don't want it smashed like a beer can. You might want to get it kitted, similar to mine." I pointed to Stacy, dent in the side. A broken headlight and dried blood in the bumper spikes from the keylet made her look much more able for the job than the pretty boy's truck. "Fine, let's take the piece of shit." At this, I got up and I punched him in the gut. He got up and went for his gun, but I had mine off my hip first, and at the sound of the hammer cockback, for dramatic effect, he raised his hands. "Don't make fun of another man's truck, Xavier." He gave me a shit-eating grin and laughed, and so did I. I helped him up and we got into Stacy and we started her. "So Xavier, what do you want to see first? A rampant sex robot or a herd of Wendigo?" He looked taken aback. Robot please. I'm not too fond of Wendigo." "Robot it is." After driving for a few minutes, I worked up the courage to ask Xavier about his past. "So what's your story?" "Well, I used to be a cartel leader for El Chapo, and then my partner betrayed me. She reported me to the police and she took our kids. She killed our son and sold our daughter into trafficking. I hunted her down. I posed as a Bolivian ambassador and got her into bed without her recognizing me. I threw her out of the window and I jumped out after her, put her in my cartel car, then I drove away. I took care of her a few minutes later in the middle of the desert and I left her to rot." "Did you ever find your daughter?" "Yeah, she was bought by a few FBI agents who had the goal of freeing as many trafficking victims as possible. They freed her back into my custody until they found out about my past. They took her away and they imprisoned me. I broke out by strangling the guard on duty with my handcuff. I shot and killed everybody in the compound, including my twin brother, who had been imprisoned for cartel affiliation. I placed my ID in his pocket and I ran." "Holy shit, you're a badass man. How did they not realize that the body wasn't yours?" The cartel requires members to burn off their finger and toe prints so they can't be identified if imprisoned. So your ex-partner, she was your girlfriend? No, amigo. She was my wife. I will never understand why she killed her son. I don't think I want to look into somebody that insane. Holy crap, man. I'm sorry. No, it's fine. It doesn't bother me as much anymore. Enough about me. What's your backstory, compadre? I outlined to him the story of my past, which I told all of in my previous post, along with some details that I left out, which I would like to continue to leave out for now as they involve my child. I may tell you someday. Wow, so this Cryptex really does just take in criminals like us, Xavier said when I was finished. We arrived in the Sharpsburg area a short while later. It wasn't hard to find the robot. It didn't go far from her previous residence. I pulled out my revolver, lead bullets this time, and held it at the ready. Put your hands up, ma'am. She turned around. Why? I accidentally killed my owner. Everybody thinks I did it on purpose. What reason do I have to live? Shoot me, sir, please. We aren't going to shoot you, ma'am. Please, put your hands up. How this thing was sentient with feeling of regret, I had no clue. But I was willing to bring her in, or kill her, either one. Fine. She slowly raised her hands. I handcuffed her. Valerie of Sexto Corp. You're under arrest for the murder of Jonathan Rogers. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you by the state of Maryland. Do you have any questions? No. Good. I just arrested a sex robot. I called the police and left her chained to the front porch and we left. 2 criminals have no business in an arrest. We began driving to Winchester, and shortly enough we arrived at the location and met a park ranger who took us to the location of the disappearance. I knew exactly where the Wendigo lair was from the stench of rot coming from the cave about 100 yards away from the disappearance site. I told the park ranger to wait where he was, which he gladly did, and Xavier and I went in. The cave wasn't very deep. When we got to the back of it, there were 4 Wendigo feasting on 7 bodies, all clearly campers. I had a full cylinder of nat rounds, 6 shots. Xavier had his magazine full of nat rounds. His finger fondled the trigger of his Glock. The gun was clearly comfortable in his hands. I tried not to think about how many people had died at the hands of this man. I was no clean slate, but he has killed at least 100 more people than I, and it scared me. We opened fire on the Wendigo herd. My first bullet caught the alpha in the head, killing him instantly. Javier's caught one in the genitals. It bellowed in pain. My second bullet caught another one in the chest, blowing a hole the size of a potato through it. Javier had a sadistic grin on his face while shooting the wound. He was clearly enjoying their pain. He had shot the same one 3 times now, in the lower body. I shot the 3rd one after it started to run at us. It died immediately. I had hit it in the head as well. Javier was still shooting the same Wendigo, torturing it. I shot it in the head. Javier, why the hell weren't you shooting to kill? These things deserve pain, and you know it, Kyle. Shoot to kill next time. Yes, sir. I called Jerry and he sent the cleanup crew. I had 500 wired to my account and Javier had 450 to his. We went home. Javier got into his truck and drove home after a quick goodbye. Okay, so a lot of shit has happened since the last update. First off, I should clarify that I'm not Kyle. I'm Javier Garcia. and right now there is an open investigation into Kyle Reitiger's disappearance. When I got here, I found his story nearly finished on his laptop. I hid it and I called the cops because Kyle was nowhere to be found in his house. There was blood on the floor trailing to the woods. His truck was still parked in his driveway. The cops arrived and I told them who was missing. And they didn't believe me at first. They didn't believe that my partner was missing. Well, that can't be possible. Kyle Reitiger is dead. Bullshit he is. I told them the story Kyle told all of you in his third post, and they actually believed me by some miracle and started an investigation. I used the identity of my other twin, identical triplets. Juan was the only one who stayed out of the cartel. They questioned me about the last time that I had seen him, and I told them. It was the night before, after our hunt. What do you mean hunt? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Tell me, son. This is important if we are to find Kyle. We need to know who he could have pissed off because right now, it looks like a kidnapping. We were on a hunt for a Sasquatch and a fern wolf. Son, I need you to tell the truth here. Those are just old legends. I told you wouldn't believe me. Let me call my boss and put him on speaker. Okay. I took out my cell phone and I tapped Jerry's number in my contacts. Good old Jerry the jerk-off answered on the first ring.
Jay, what is it? Where the hell has Kyle been? I've been trying to call him for the past 2 hours.
The detective answered for me. Sir, Jay is sitting with me in the police station. I am Detective Ventura of the Winchester Police Department. Kyle Reitiger went missing sometime last night and we are currently trying to find him. I understand that you are Jay's boss. There was silence for a second before.
Yes.
Good. Sir Jay tells me he and Kyle were hunting a Sasquatch and a fern wolf last night. Is that correct?
Yes.
Jerry said through obviously gritted teeth. After a few seconds, I hung up the phone. They questioned me for another half an hour, then they let me go. I went home with Kyle's laptop, and I'm not going to transcribe what he wrote. Tonight we had 2 very difficult hunts. Since we last spoke, a wolf has bit the shit out of me. I got the usual call from Jerry around 6. Hello?
Kyle, there's a Sasquatch terrorizing hikers on the Appalachia Trail.
God damn it.
There is also a fern wolf in the Martinsburg area.
Okay, I'll get on it when Xavier gets here. Xavier arrived 10 minutes late. I chewed him out on the way to Martinsburg. We arrived at the location of the mauling 40 minutes later. I jumped out of my truck with Xavier following close behind. I got my guns out of my truck and a 6-foot piece of bronze American wire. For those of you that don't know, a fern wolf is a wolf the size of a mastiff, with a jaw that can unhinge and swallow a human whole. It has claws as sharp as knives and nearly as large. It has the strength of Hercules on steroids. My AR was loaded with bronze bullets and my revolver was loaded with silver ones. It wasn't hard to track down the wolf. There was a trail of blood that led right to her. When we found her, I told Xavier the plan. You get in front of her and shoot her in the legs. I'll come up from behind and wrap this around her. I held up the wire. Got it, Xavier said. He ran to the front of the wolf and got her attention. He started shooting at her, hitting every shot in her legs. I ran up and I wrapped the wolf in the bronze wire and she started to sizzle, screaming in pain. She was immobilized and in a lot of pain. I picked her up and I threw her in the bed of my truck. Jerry likes to rehabilitate fern wolves and keep them as pets. I called Jerry and he started over to my location. He arrived 10 minutes later in his 2020 Ford F-350 pickup truck. He took the wolf, wired $2,000 to my bank account. Fern wolves are worth a ton of money. And then he drove off. He then went to the location of the Sasquatch. On the way there, we talked about women and such. He got to the location of the Sasquatch sighting and got out of the truck. The Sasquatch found us before we found him. He stepped out into the trail and faced us. We raised our guns and yelled, "Put your hands up." He did. "My name is Miguel. Please, if you're gonna do it, shoot me." I could hear his voice quiver. "Get on your knees, please." He did. I walked up and I chained his hands together. He was crying. "Miguel, it's okay. I'm not gonna shoot you." "Thank you," he said, crying. "I only chained your hands because I don't think you will, but it's possible you could try and kill me." "I won't." "Good to know." "Javier, call Jerry and ask what he wants us to do if one surrenders." Javier made the call while I sat chatting with Miguel. Javier came back. "Kyle, can you talk for a second?" "Yeah." I assured Miguel that I'd be right back. We walked a short distance down the trail. "What did he say?" "He told me to shoot him." "What?" "I'm not letting you shoot him. Look at him, he hasn't done anything." We looked back and Miguel was playing with a beetle that had crawled onto his hand. He was watching and laughing while it crawled all over him. "I agree, I don't want to shoot him. I say we let him go and tell Jerry that he ran and we couldn't get him." "Sounds like a plan." I walked back to Miguel and unchained him. "Come on, man, stand up, you're free to go." "Really? Thank you so much. Every other hunter has tried to kill me." He started crying again. "Hey, it's okay, Miguel. I need you to leave the area though. Otherwise, they're going to send another hunter after you. I'll give you an hour's head start before I call my boss and say that you ran off. They'll send a search party out. They never go more than 5 miles from the escape point. Can you run 5 miles in an hour?" He smiled. "Yep." "Well, get a move on, pal. Maybe we'll meet again someday." He stood up and wrapped me in a bear hug. A Sasquatch hug? "I can't breathe, Miguel." "Oh, sorry, sir." "It's okay. Your hour starts now." He smiled, turned, and then ran off down the trail. I turned around and Javier was smiling, genuinely smiling. I've never seen it before. "Do I get a hug like that, you big, ugly teddy bear?" "Shut up, before I dress you up in an animal costume and turn you over to Jerry." We laughed. I waited the hour and told Jerry that the Sasquatch got away. After some cussing, he accepted it and we went home. And here I am writing this. I just heard something walking outside the door to my room. It sounds big and it has claws. I'm gonna check it out. If I don't come back and you find this Javier, post this story and continue this post thread. So that's it. I'll update as details come in on Kyle's case. The police found Kyle's revolver in the woods behind his house. Javier Garcia, you're under arrest for the kidnapping of Kyle Reidinger. Hello all, it's been a while I know, and damn do I have a story for you. First off, I should tell you that I am indeed alive. Yes, your sexy monster hunter lived through his kidnapping, despite my best efforts to the contrary. So let's start filling y'all in. First, I should start with what happened on the night of my disappearance. I understand Javier posted my last entry even though it was unfinished. Anyway, after I heard the heavy, thumping, scratchy footsteps working their way back my hallway, I got up to check it out, taking my large hunting knife with me. Now I guarantee I looked absolutely stupid emerging dramatically from my room, in a union suit with my hair messy, and my beard in dire need of some oil, holding a knife the size of my head. So I walked out of my room and immediately saw the source of the noise. There is a set of yellow glowing eyes at the end of my hallway. I quickly reached out to my right and I flicked the light switch. The light turned on, revealing the beast at the end of the hall. It was the Skinwalker. She came for me and I couldn't believe it. Here was this deformed wolf-looking ass at the end of my hallway. And now at this point, the song playing through my Bluetooth speaker in my room switched to Country Squire by Tyler Childers. Perfect fighting music. You might want to listen to it before you read the next part, so you understand how amazing this shit was. The Skinwalker spoke. "Kyle, I have come. It is time for your demise. Come willingly and I will make it quick. If you refuse to listen to my demands, I will have to rip a few limbs off then." I replied, pretending to stroke my beard thoughtfully. "I'm gonna go with option C. Screw you and your demands." This obviously pissed her off and she snarled while saying, "So be it then," acting all macho and shit. "Let's go," I promptly replied. She bolted towards me and lunged. I kicked her in the face, sending her sprawling. I was in need to let out some anger, so I let her get back up so I could fight her some more. She got to her feet shakily. She turned and growled at me again and ran at me. I thought she was going to lunge at me again, but I was mistaken, as she plowed through my legs. I landed flat on my back and I had the air forced from my lungs. She patted over and stood looking down at me. Without hesitation, I stabbed upward. The knife impaled her chest and she scampered back, whimpering and growling in pain. I rolled over and I got back to my feet. She healed around the knife, which meant I wasn't going to get it back without killing her. I charged her and tackled her. Once I was on top of her, I started punching. Blood ran down her face and pooled onto the floor, coating her black fur. I attempted to strangle her, but after a few seconds of her kicking, her foot connected with my chest and sent me flying across the hallway. I hit the wall on the other end, cracking the drywall. I fell to the floor and I lay there, stunned for a few seconds. She walked back up to me and raked her claw down my face from my hairline over my left eye and down to my jawbone, leaving 4 large gashes and making my left eye useless. She then bit me in the foot and started to drag me away. I was in shock and I couldn't fight back. Hell, I couldn't even scream. I blacked out somewhere along the way and woke up sometime later to the Skinwalker standing over me, glaring down. I could only see out of my right eye. My face was sticky with what I assumed was dried blood. There was a searing pain in my right foot, which I took as I wouldn't be walking out of here. The Skinwalker was now back in human form. She was treating my facial wounds. I assumed she was trying to treat infection. I tried to pull away but only fell over on the dirty shack floor. I tried to crawl away feebly. She grabbed me by the remaining scraps of my union suit and dragged me back into the chair. I didn't try to get away anymore after that. After that, many days passed. At least 6 or 7, but I'm not quite sure. After time had passed, there was a commotion one night. There was a loud roar, like that of a freaking dinosaur. Kinda felt like I was in Jurassic Park for a second. And then a black shape crashed through the ceiling of my shack. It was the Skinwalker. She was trapped under a beam now. I began calling for help, and after a second or two, I heard Xavier's voice. "Hey, I found him! Over here, hurry!" Suddenly I saw him in the doorway. Freaking jackass, Kyle. I had to break out of a maximum security prison to save your ass, he said to me while chuckling. I let out a weak chuckle and I tried to get up, failed, and I hit the ground hard. Suddenly I saw 2 other faces in the doorway. One was my red-haired boss, Jerry. The other one was... It was Miguel. They had come for me. Jerry and Javier helped me up. They each supported me on one side and helped me to Javier's truck. Once there, Jerry spoke. Kyle, you've been put on leave from this point until this time next month. I'll clean this up. Javier, get him home, please. Now hang on a freaking second. I'm ending that thing that tried to kill me. Give me a gun, I said. After a second, Jerry replied, Fair enough. Here. He tossed me the shotgun that was strapped to his shoulder. I walked back to the shack with help from Javier and Jerry, and found the Skinwalker still trapped. I aimed the shotgun at her head and spoke. What do you say in defense? I asked. Screw you. Just because you kill me doesn't mean you win, you know that, right? My death means nothing, nothing. We will win. We will win the war. You will be betrayed by one of your own. You will die. We will always win, Kyle. I'm not convinced, I replied, and I pulled the trigger, blowing her head off. I went to thank Miguel. After I did, I went to go back to the truck, but I heard a commotion behind me. I turned and saw Jerry holding his pistol to Miguel's head. Miguel was unable to escape Jerry's iron grip. Jerry, what the hell are you doing? Let him go, he saved me. I screamed at him. While you were gone, Kyle, I instated a kill on sight clause for all cryptids. I'm following protocol. Stay out of it. He pushed Miguel away and Miguel turned to look at me with a betrayed look in his face. And then the shot rang out. Blood splattered the front of Miguel's torso and on me. He fell to the ground and lay there unmoving. I tried to run to him but ended up stumbling there. I sat by his side crying. I heard the sound of Javier punching Jerry, but I didn't care. My boss had just shot the creature that had saved my life. Miguel didn't deserve to die. It was that moment that I decided I would no longer be loyal to Cryptids. Javier ended up beating the shit out of Jerry. Jerry just said that he deserved it, and Javier took me home. I got home and I passed out of my bed, not even bothering to take off my bloody, dirty clothes. This was a month ago. I am scheduled to take my first return call tonight. We'll see what happens. Hello all. It's been quite a while since my last update, and I do apologize for that. My life has actually been going fairly well. Until about an hour ago anyway. Since we last spoke, I've gotten a girlfriend. You didn't think I could do it, did you? I began taking online spelling and grammar classes. Yes, I saw your comments. I adopted a Rottweiler and gotten a day job, along with submitting my 2-week notice to Jerry. Well, here we go. This will be my last entry ever. I'm done with everything. I met Rachel back in October. She worked with me at Sheets, my day job, and we hit it off well. And soon we were exchanging phone numbers. Soon after we began dating, and now she's gone. Gone for good, and she's never coming back. She can't come back. I guess I should start from the beginning for this to make sense. Today, Rachel and I invited Javier over for dinner. He showed up at around 5. Rachel and I began preparing dinner around 6. I grilled some chicken and she sauteed vegetables. We sat down to eat around 7 and finished at around 7:30. Cracked open a couple beers and a bottle of wine. We messed around and just hung out until around 9 o'clock. Javier was pulling out his coat when there came a massive thump at the door, rattling it on his hinges. Rachel screamed, dropping her wine glass, shattering it. Javier and I drew our guns and trained them on the door. Rachel, go to my room and lock the door, I said, as another massive thump came on the door and it was beginning to crack. Go. She ran back to my room, heard the door latch and lock. Another thump, and a massive crunch as the door broke off the hinges. A massive 7-foot-tall Jerry walked in, a sawed-off shotgun leveled at Xavier. "What the hell are you doing?" is all Xavier was able to say before the gun went off. Xavier fell to his knees, clutching his stomach. Jerry leveled the gun to his head and looked at me, my gun still raised. "Put the gun down, Kyle." "You sick asshole, I'll kill you." I pulled the hammer back on my revolver. Jerry raised an eyebrow and cocked his shotgun for the second shot. "Put it down or I'll blow his head off." Defeated, I dropped my gun, and I dropped to my knees. "Kyle, you have two options. Die, or continue your position in my company." "Screw you." "I guess you've chosen." And then I heard a scream, loud and animalistic. I turned and saw Rachel running at Jerry with my Bowie knife raised. He turned, raised his gun and fired. Rachel fell to the ground, a gaping hole in her chest. The shot killed her instantly. Before he could turn around, I picked up my gun and shot him in the back 3 times, and then ran up and kicked him in the back of the head, and shot him in the head, killing him. I ran to Xavier, knowing Rachel was already gone, and I checked his pulse. He was still alive but fading fast. I tried to put pressure on the wound, but it didn't help. He stared at me with glossed over eyes, as a trail of blood ran from the corner of his mouth, and the pool of blood he was laying in grew in size. I sat next to him, defeated, knowing that he was gone. "I'm sorry, my friend." My voice was somber. Now as I sit in my living room with my best friend, my girlfriend, and my ex-boss all dead around me, and my gun lying on the table next to me, reloaded with one more shot, the shot that will take my life, I write this. As soon as I post this, I will end it. I just thought you all would like some closure. Thank you everybody for the support. This is Kyle Redinger, signing off for the last time.